Hi everybody, it's Courtney and welcome to today's video where I'll be going over how to make some cute clay fridge magnets. This is the second video in my Hobby Starter Pack series. If you're interested, you can check out the first video where I went over how to bake chocolate chip cookies. For today's video, I'll be going over the materials needed to make the clay fridge magnets, the cost of those materials, as well as a little tutorial for how to make them. So without further ado, let's get started. So for the clay fridge magnets, you will of course need some clay. I got mine from Michaels. I got all of my materials from Michaels, so these costs are based on that. For the clay, I got an assortment of 12 colors by Sculpey. It was $15.99. I also got some plastic clay tools in a pack of 4, which was $4.99. I got the glossy finish Mod Podge, which was $3.99. I also got some magnets. I got 1/2-inch magnets, which were $2.99. I also needed Gorilla Glue, which was $6.99, and then a couple of paintbrushes, which were $1.99. If you'd prefer, you could get white clay and just paint that. You would also need to get some paint. I decided to get the assortment of colors of clay, and then I just used a little bit of paint that I already had to make some details on the magnet. So that's totally optional, but something that might be preferred by some people. So the total for making these comes out to $36.94. Also, I made 9 clay magnets. There's more than enough materials for me to do this again. I would just need to buy more magnets, or I could use the clay for different projects. So overall it comes out to $36.94, which I think is pretty good for 9 magnets, and then also some other side projects. So to get started, I just laid out all of my materials on a cutting board, which I used to make sure I didn't stain my table. I started off with the 2 colors I was going to use for my first magnet, which is going to be a chocolate chip cookie. For the first color, I just cut off a small part and then I rolled that in my hands to warm it up, and then I shaped it with my hands as well and then smoothed it out with a clay tool. For the second color, I cut off an even smaller part and cut those into chocolate chip-like shapes, and I just rolled those in my hands as well and then pushed them into the cookie. And just like that, I finished my first clay magnet. For the second one, I used a little bit of a different technique. I rolled out a piece of the clay flat, and then I used the knife-shaped clay tool to just cut around the edges to get the shape that I wanted, and then I used the round tool to smooth out those edges. Here I'm making a strawberry, and so I also grabbed the green and I cut off a little piece of that and I rolled that out again with my fingers and the clay tool. I then set that on top of the strawberry base, and then I used another clay tool to cut out the leaf shapes on the strawberry. I also used another clay tool to push that top part in, and then I made my second clay magnet. The same process was done for the majority of the rest of these, so I just thought I'd show you the finished product. I then put everything on a baking sheet and baked it at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes. I also wrapped up my clay with saran wrap so that it wouldn't dry out and I could save it for future use. This is actually the next day here. All my clay magnets had been baked, and you want to make sure that they are baked thoroughly so that they are all dry. I laid out all of my materials that I'd be using for the final touches on these. I used some paint to add the number 8 to my 8-ball clay magnet, and then I used some Mod Podge to sort of just get a nice glossy finish on these. After I applied the Mod Podge, I made sure it was really dry, and then I moved on to the super glue. So I used the Gorilla Glue, and I placed just a small amount on the back of the magnet, and then I pushed that against the clay portion and I held it there for a few seconds to make sure it was really dry, and then I let it dry for a bit longer before using it to put on my fridge. I did this for all of the clay magnets. Some of my clips got cut out, so I wanted to just show you all of the final products. Here they are on my fridge. I think they are super cute. I had a ton of fun making them, so I really hope that you give this a shot. But that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.